Hello and welcome. I'm AJ,
I'm Alex.
and this is NTVN, New Tech Vintage Nerds. Today we're going to talk about Ceph.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. And I'm not sure what it is, but I hope you do. So let's roll that intro. Before we talk about Ceph storage containers and why you even should or should not want it,
Or shouldn't, indeed, yeah.
yeah. What did you automate since last time? Or what did you change in your automation?
My wife got a new car. And this car, as so many cars these days, has got an app. And that app is understood by my home automation. So what I just built is when she wakes up in the morning after 20 minutes after she woke up, the car will automatically enable the climate control.
Oh, nice.
So when she comes out, well, it's now going into summertime. So basically, it doesn't really matter right now. But as soon as it will be getting colder again, hopefully she doesn't have to de-ice windows or get into a cold car because it will be warm when she gets in.
Oh, nice, nice.
And that has been timed because she does work variable hours and variable days. Excuse me. That I can configure that on the days and times that she actually works. So based on the variable, is my wife going to work today? It will or will not enable the climate control in the car after she woke up.
Oh, cool. How do you do that? From a calendar or something like that?
Yeah, from a calendar and a bunch of variables.
Oh, okay.
So
Nice.
that really worked nicely.
Yeah. Well, I don't do that kind of things because my wife is going on a bike these days. So,
Oh, and actually, I fixed another thing. And really fixed it because it was broken. My doorbell used to send a picture of the person pushing the button, and for some reason that broke down. So I fixed that this week. So now when somebody pushes the smart doorbell, both me and my wife get a picture of the person who pushed the button.
that's useful.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and we have something similar, but then it pushes it to the Apple TV. At least when we're watching something on TV.
So I used to make a distinction between are we at home or are we not at home? Because, well, if you are at home, generally you'll walk up to the door anyway.
Yeah.
So does it really matter to know who's in front of the door? But I noticed that we find it so damn convenient to see who's actually at the door that I got rid of that distinction, and it just now always sends a picture to our phones and Apple Watches as well,
Yeah.
no matter if we're at home or not.
Yeah, well, we do it with the cameras. They will show the moving image on the Apple TV. Our cats are trained, or they trained us. I'm gonna leave it in the middle. When they want to come in, they are sitting in front of the camera and they wait until we get up and open the door.
They trained you.
Yeah, yeah, probably. The
You,
same goes
you
when
bet.
they're at the terrace. They also are going to sit in front of the door, and yeah, we let them in or let them out, and let them in again and let them out again.
You know the concept of a cat flap, right?
I know, but the one I found, it needs to be specific again. When I was looking at things like that, the cat flap we wanted or needed because it's in the living room where the door is. it will have a temperature drop when it's winter. So the isolation is not that good. I
I,
don't want that.
I noticed well, I was watching a home improvement program the other day, and they had a similar problem, and they solved it with a special cat door,
Oh?
which was 1,500 quid.
No, yeah, exactly. Those kind of things.
But it did have an isolated door
Yeah.
and a what's it called, tag,
Yeah, RFID tag.
RFID tag. Yeah,
Yeah.
so only your cat gets in and not half the neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, for those 1,500 quid, I will get up from the couch and open the door.
Are you
I know it's
are you a gadget lover or are you a getting upper?
well, I also have some other things on my wanted list. 1,500, you can do a lot with that. I really want a new camera, and 1,500 gets me closer to that target.
True, very true.
I did something similar with automation. I changed an automation with an override. When we are in the kitchen, the light reacts to our presence, well, actually to movement. And sometimes the light goes out when we're still in the kitchen. Somehow the detection is not always right. And I know you can do something with millimeter wave detection. I haven't gotten around to that. The solution I found now or implemented right now, if you are longer in the kitchen than say 15 minutes, then you can push a button. It overrides the detection and it keeps on the light forever until you push the wall button, and then it will reset to the normal situation.
I will start using. I know that there is now millimeter wave support for Homey,
Mm-hmm.
so I'll purchase one and see if I can make it work in our living room and kitchen.
Yeah, I tried other solutions like smart ring. I got a smart ring. My wife's got a smart watch. With
It,
that, it detects it, but it's not particularly good. The combination of the two works, but then again, it's not it's not fine grained enough.
yeah. So apparently, millimeter wave solves the issue.
Yeah,
I'm told. So I'm gonna give that a go.
yeah. I'm curious.
The bloody sensor is 80 quid. So yeah.
Yeah,
But
I'm gonna wait until you tried it out. And
yeah, I was afraid you go say that.
all right, automation. Well, other topic on the automation calendar, Ceph. I know
Well,
it from,
that's not automation.
well, it's part of automation enterprise tech.
Yeah, it's a home labby
Okay,
shit.
okay, you're excused then. Uh,
Yeah.
I wow, I heard a lot about Ceph, and specifically with the customers I work for, and I think, well, it's nice. It's a big solution, but why would you use it in your home lab? What is it even? What does it do?
Basically, it aggregates local storage, puts on an abstraction layer, and it then binds it together into a single volume. And it's up to you how data is being stored on that volume. You can store a copy on every drive. Well, that would not be very useful. And would consume a lot of storage. But there are systems with erasure coding as well. So you can say, okay, I've got 3 drives. I want to stripe my storage amongst 2 and put a checksum on the third, or well, some
Wow,
RAID-like configuration.
that's all a bit enterprise techy.
It is. It looks. It looks a
what
bit
does
like
it do?
it.
Simple.
Well, it looks like a bit like. Well, that doesn't make it simpler. But if you're familiar with vSAN, it sort of works the same way. Which is the reason why I was looking at it actually. The thing is that the way I looked, the way I tried to look at it was that in my Turing Pi cluster. So originally I had two CPUs in my Turing Pi board, two RK1s, which are really ROC ARM chips. They are well known because they are pretty powerful. At least a lot more powerful than for instance, a Raspberry Pi. And you can assign more RAM to them, and they've got PCI Express lanes. But they're not like, for instance, an Intel CPU, right, or an AMD. So they're not at that level. There are server CPUs based on ARM technology, but this is not one of them. But they are still very functional. So, for instance, I've got, I think, about 20 containers running on one of them, which is fine. So it's not a huge CPU, but it runs workloads like that just fine. I've got one that actually runs Frigate with a separate CPU for the AI detection, and that works fine as well. But my idea was to create a single volume with, well, Ceph, as it turned out, to bind those, well, now 3 CPUs together, and make a Docker Swarm cluster with a Ceph data store underneath it. So you would sort of have a container high availability solution with a high availability storage solution underneath.
Yeah, so when one node fails, it automatically takes over on the other one.
You can boot the container on another node, yada yada yada. That was the idea. So the minimum amount of nodes I had to have for that were 3. So I bought another RK1 for 130 euros and plugged it in. I also added, which is not a requirement, but probably my OCD kicked in. I wanted to have the same amount of storage on every node. So I bought 3 new NVMe drives. I had a mixture of them in there right now, or up to then, one 500 gig and 2 128 gig and another 256 gig, just because I had them lying around. But now I've put 500 gigs in every one of them, which would basically mean, if I would say, let's do a failure erasure coding for one drive failure, then I would have roughly a terabyte of storage.
And erasure
which is fine for containers, right? I mean, it's far too much, probably.
Yeah, what's erasure coding? It's almost Saturdays.
Yeah, it's just so people are going to shoot me for it, but it's sort of RAID.
Yeah, okay.
So the Docker Swarm was fairly easy. You just you start one node, declare it master, add the 2 others, and basically you're in business.
Yeah.
That was in a jiffy. But Ceph was a different beast. I tried with mini Ceph first, which sounded like the solution I needed. And initially that worked. So it created the abstraction layer. I could add the drives to it. One step at a time. You start it at one node, and you declare that the master node, and you can add the other ones to the master node. It took me a bit of figuring out how that worked, because there was no proper documentation to be found, nowhere. So that was good. So it turns out that you have to generate a key for every node that you add. So you generate a key on the master node. You then copy that key to the node you want to add. So you add to this cluster, this is your key. And it does some kind of broadcast, finds the master node and adds itself. If you try to add node number 2 with the same key, it says I can't find the cluster.
Oh.
Okay, that's odd. But then I found out I have to regenerate a new key for the second node, and then you can add that one as well. So far so good. That worked. I could then add the local storage of the 3 nodes to the cluster, so that worked as well. And then number 3, which was where I got stuck, is okay. So now you have to put all those nodes together into one volume, define what sort of volume you want to have. So I wanted to have a 2+1, and then mount that node on every node of the cluster as a form of storage. That I never got working with Ceph.
Okay.
So I don't know why, but I couldn't find out how to create that volume, that pool. Well, I could find out how to create the pool, but I could never find out how to create the actual volume that I could mount on the on all the nodes. So then I turned to Ceph instead of Ceph, which basically meant that I had to toss everything and start all over. Wonderful. Specifically because I don't have a snapshot mechanism or anything. So every time you start a new configuration, basically you screw up the system.
Yep.
I love it. So you have to keep track on what you're doing, what packages you install, because you have to remove them again. And not only that, but you also have to remove the configuration files. And don't forget to remove the configuration files, because otherwise, the next time you try, you install it, you run into the same snag you ran into before.
Yep.
Believe me, I've been there this round also. So, I'm telling it quite quickly right now, but this whole process actually took me 2-3 days. So, Ceph, basically the same procedure. So I got it working. Then I created the pool, used Ceph ADM, the web page, to create the volume. And then for some reason, I couldn't find out why, it was like pulling the handbrake.
Okay.
It was like, oh, what's going on? So I did saw insane amounts of data being transmitted through the network interface. I was able to mount the volume at some point, but it was unbearably slow. So I was not going to put containers onto that. I tried to tune and find out what was being transmitted between the different nodes and why this is not usable because of the amount of data that was going back and forth, and I couldn't find it. So what is, and I am suspecting that this is the issue. First of all, the RK1s only have a single network interface, and the Turing Pi board has got a virtual switch on board. That's not really virtual switch; it's actually a switch chip on board, and the switch chip is a simple gigabit switch between the four slots that I can plug a CPU in. So my guess is that either they do not have enough performance amongst each other, or gigabit is simply not enough, or you should have a separate channel for synchronization and one for the actual data that you want to store on it, so the actual data traffic. Probably, or possibly, it's a mixture of all three of them. I noticed that Proxmox actually has some form of a Ceph wizard that works wonders with a 3-node cluster that you just install Proxmox on the local drive, and then you just say, you know what, I want all the other drives to be a Ceph storage, and then it apparently does that, and just you click OK, and it just works. I have not been able to get this to work on those three little ARM chips.
Yeah. So you've done a lot with vSAN in the past. What's your experience until this moment with Ceph next to the storage performance?
I don't think I can create. I don't think I can give you a fair comparison simply because I haven't been able to get Ceph up and running the way I wanted to.
Yeah, it's not a
So
single.
comparable. Exactly. So comparable to vSAN. It is supposed to be able to do that. But I haven't been able to do so. Then again, the configuration I now have with the 3 ARM chips and the single gigabit interface would not be sufficient for vSAN either. And so it's fair to say that the systems that I try to configure this on are simply underpowered and are not able to do whatever I wanted from them. So, yeah. Basically, what happened was I reverted everything and just mounted the 3 NVMe drives as a local XFS store, which is apparently the fastest you can do right now on an NVMe drive. I can confirm it's very fast. And they are now 3 separate Docker nodes, which I manage with Portainer as 3 different instances, and they just run their individual containers. And unfortunately, well, I can't fail over.
Yeah, no shared storage. So when something crashed, your data is gone.
Well, no shared local storage. But obviously, I've got a SAN. I can mount an NFS share on every single.
I hope you have a NAS at home, not a SAN, but.
Well, it's both. Basically, it does block storage and it does file storage.
Yeah, true.
So so I could do that. So I could either iSCSI or NFS and just do it like that. But I don't want to because, well, like I said, it's just a gigabit interface. And if you want to transfer everything over the gigabit interface, that's going to be a pain. So right now, with 1 gigabit interface as the front end and the local storage and the local install of Docker, it works fine. My Frigate Docker container is quick. The other ones are quick. It's wonderful. So yeah, I'll leave it at that right now.
Yeah, so you're not going to reinvestigate why it was slow and if you could use it for a shared configuration?
What I will do is create 3 virtual machines and try Proxmox onto that. And give that a go and see how they do the configuration underwater.
Yeah.
And maybe then give that a go. Like I said, I would have loved to try this with mini-Ceph. It really sounded promising in terms of what it could do and the requirements that it had and the 3 different nodes. It sounded like the solution I was looking for, but I was not able to get it to get it working the way I wanted to.
Yeah, that sounds a bit like my journey through NFS with my container box. I've got it running on a TrueNAS, and I wanted to be able that every container did its own what's it called, PV, persistent volume from a NFS share, and most things work, but things like Plex has a hard time, especially for its library files, to be able to do that through NFS. So I reverted everything back to local storage on the TrueNAS box.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a wonderful solution, but I really like the Turing Pi board to do the container stuff with,
Yeah.
and I mean I realize that because they are IRM chips, I'm a bit restricted. Because every x86 container is obviously not going to work.
Yeah.
And these are very modest chips, so I can't run something like Rosetta Stone on it. I will choke them with that. So if even if it were possible, so translation layer is not an option. So I run native ARM containers. You'd be surprised how many apps do have native ARM
Oh
containers.
yeah.
So I mean, it's a lot of that just works. Like Frigate actually has a specific Rockchip distribution, so I can use hardware acceleration, and that actually works pretty good.
Hmm.
So I was tuning it before we recorded, and it I have to say the response times of the cameras and the response times of the recordings, being able to do the playback, it's all pretty good. It's almost instantaneously when you click on it. So that is specifically for a little board with just a single gigabit interface. That is pretty impressive. But yeah, well, like I said, it's still fairly modest in terms of the switch performance. Maybe for a future version, the people from Turing, hello, if you're watching or listening, I would like to have two interfaces that I can actually LACP or do failover or whatever,
Yeah.
and maybe internally 10 gig. That would be really cool.
That would be nice.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Right now, this is already very satisfying, and I also have to say, in terms of power consumption, this is just amazing.
Hmm.
I've got a 3 node system with 1.5 terabytes of RAM, and I can actually give you the live power consumption of it, and that's just insane. If I look at what my x86 home lab is using, that's roughly 300 watts, which, in all fairness, consists of three ESXi hosts with three NVMe drives each, so one as boot drive and two as vSAN drives,
Mm-hmm.
and a 10 gig switch. But there's also a NAS in there, and in that same 300 watts. So it's not bad in terms of a home lab. But if you look at what the Turing Pi currently consumes, so let me repeat that. It's 3 nodes, so 3 Rock chips, 3 times NVMe, with a built-in switch with a 1 gig uplink to my network, and that consumes a whole 20.1 watts,
Oh, that's nice.
and that is it.
Nice.
So it really is low power. And if you then look at the for instance the performance that Frigate has, or the performance that any other container has that runs on it, it's insane, right? I mean, my reverse proxy is like instant,
Yeah.
right? That is wonderful,
Yeah. It-
and that for 20 watts. I mean,
yeah. That's,
hey,
that's
beat that.
yeah. I'm not going to beat that. I mean, I put everything on my TrueNAS box with a Hyper whatever card it's called from Asus with 4 NVMEs in it. So it probably will use more. Oh yeah, and I got 6 disks in it, spinning disks.
Yeah, that will be another project. Actually, looking at I've got two NAS boxes right now. One is sort of NAS and SAN, and the other one is just, well, it's that's a Synology, and the other one is a TrueNAS box, which basically is just a time machine target. That's it. Why do you have two NASes? You could ask. Well,
I do.
yes, I thought so. Well, there's a very clear reason for that. I was unable to to convince the Synology to give me a proper performance when I want it to be a plain file storage for my network, so both Windows and Mac systems, because I use all both of them, and be a time machine target and a trustworthy time machine target. It just didn't do that. I don't know why. It just didn't want to do it. It was either working as a time machine target, and I was the file browsing on the file shares from a Mac, from a MacBook or a MacBook Air was so painfully slow it was unworkable.
Yeah.
Or the file share was wonderful, quick, and reliable, and Time Machine was bailing out every time with an error I can't write to the Time Machine volume.
Yeah, I got the same experience.
So in the end, I thought, you know what, I'm done with this. I still had a 1U machine lying around with a Xeon E3-ish. Basically, well, it wasn't really much, but it was enough to put, I think, 6 or 8 SSDs in there and mount them all together and call them a time machine volume,
Yeah.
basically. Unfortunately, the machine died. So the SuperMicro board that was in there went belly up, and I am unable to revive it. It is a DDR3 board, so yes, I should say goodbye to it and just buy something new. I know. But, you know, what I am seriously in doubt. What am I supposed to buy right now? I really like the AMD boards because of their insane amount of NVMe, of PCIe lanes where I can mount NVMe drives. So I would really, really like that. Also because it's power efficient.
Yeah.
But they are really expensive. I mean, I do not even have a server case where I can fit one in. And if I would, for instance, buy a board with 5 or 6 X16 PCI Express lanes, and I would want to mount one of those Asus 4 NVMe drive cards into it, so that would be 5 times 4 drives. You would have a significant amount of storage and an insane amount of speed.
Yeah.
I would have to mount also 10 gig interfaces are on board, so I would save on that. But that would set only just the board and the CPU would set me back roughly €500, and then I would still have. Well, I still have the memory lying around here, so I have some ECC DDR4 DIMMs left over from an earlier upgrade action, but I'd still need to have a case and a power supply and the cards and the drives. So that would be an expensive exercise, and that is not something I was willing to do right now.
Yeah. Well, on the other hand, you do have a SuperMicro board. I think that it's in a case.
Yeah, but it's a 1U case.
Okay.
I can't put anything in there, and even worse, it's a 1U case with 3.5-inch drive bays.
Yeah, I was going to suggest a SuperMicro board with an AMD EPIC, but that will not fit in that case. Only the cooling won't fit in there.
Exactly, and I think I was looking at the S12 or H12. What's it called?
Yeah.
That is either that one or the ASRock board was the one I was looking at, and the ASRock is a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
but also cheaps out on the remote management, which I really really like
Yeah.
from SuperMicro. So it will probably be the SuperMicro, but that one including a 4701 chip is €5,500,
Yeah.
and then I need to have a case with the proper amount of clearance to put in the cards, and a power supply, and then purchase the card. The cards aren't that expensive, but
Yeah.
the NVMe drives are.
Well, on the other hand, I mean, you're talking about 5 hyper cards in it, so that's also a lot of money. What are you complaining about? If you want good storage, fast storage, it's the price
Yeah,
of the game.
yeah, it is, it is. But I mean, that's about $2,000 or so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently not willing to spend that amount of money. So what will probably happen, and this is what I'm basically aiming for, is that I will take the 4 spinning drives out of the Synology, put them into that same case, mount them to some LSI whatnot controller,
Yeah.
put a bunch of remaining SSDs in that come out of the Time Machine server into it, and then do some magic with that for the time being until I can replace those with the NVMe drives.
Yeah.
But still, then I mean, those are available. The drives are fine. I mean, they have no issues. I think they're 12 or 16 terabyte drives, something like that
Mm.
ish.
Nice.
Um, so I may want to purchase a fourth one and then create 2 VDEVs out of that, so they have a bit of speed.
Yeah.
And then create an SSD volume and maybe do some read and write caching on the remaining SSDs, yada yada yada. I don't know yet, but I would still need a server case where I can mount the 4 hard drives and a bunch of SSDs, and that has the clearance to put in the HyperX cards,
Yeah.
and so that would be quite an expensive exercise, no matter what.
Yeah. Not for right now.
No, and maybe in a multi-stage purchase. So I would purchase the board and then purchase the case at a later point in time, and just put it on the shelf here for the time being. I don't know.
Yeah. I was just wondering, since you're not using Ceph or a distributed file system anymore.
I am using vSAN.
Yeah. Okay. On the RK1s, how do you make sure that you protect the data that's on it, or is it
Right
just
now, I don't.
okay?
It just runs, and this is
And
the
it's
next
just
step. How
mm,
exactly? Yeah, when the NVMe drive is brand new, so the chance of failure is not that big. Then again, for those watching, this one died on me. Also, 500 gig NVMe drive by our friends at Kingston, and it's no longer showing me any storage. So yeah, they do die.
too bad.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, that is still a work in progress. Honestly, I have no idea how to fix that right now, other than probably introducing a VM with Linux that will be able to do something with an open source backup from those ARM things, because I run Veeam on the VMware cluster, but Veeam says no to ARM. So if you try to pull a backup from the ARM systems, it just says, I don't understand that language.
yeah, I use rsync for some backup stuff. I synchronize it from one of my NASes to the other one, so it's basically in 2 places. I know if it fails at one location, it already fails on the other one. But
Garbage in is garbage out, right?
yeah, but I can make snapshots on the TrueNAS, and that way I can make a sort of versioned history.
So what I do right now, and that is something I can definitely recommend. You will need to shell out a bit of money, but not a whole lot. My Synology currently creates a backup of all my personal files and pictures and synchronizes that to a Glacier storage at Amazon. And that is actually fairly cheap. So that just cost me a couple of euros a month.
Oh, okay.
And a couple of, as in, I think I pay 4 or 5 euros right now a month for over a terabyte of storage.
Oh, that's cheaper than the Synology own backup solution to a
First
similar
of all, it
S3.
is. Second, it's independent from the storage solution. So, if I would, I don't know, if the next storage solution would be TrueNAS based, which it probably will be, because I've got very good experiences with that.
Yeah.
I will be able to mount that and just restore it if there would be a catastrophe. Let's say if all systems would burn down, or I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I back
I
up.
don't want to jinx it.
Yeah. I back up it as well to the outside world. I can't remember which party. I mean, it just works. So, and I do test it. Don't worry. I can't remember. It was something with an I.
So I know that the data on the Glacier storage is consistent. The thing is, if you want to get it off there, then you obviously start paying. But that's the insurance policy. You pay a couple of euros a month for. And if you have to get it out, yeah, that will cost you about, I don't know, 20, 50 euros. But then again, I mean, I've got all my pictures in there, which is seriously a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, you don't want to lose that because of some silliness, right?
No.
So that is something that I'm very glad I did for a small amount. But yeah, I mean, obviously the 3-to-1 rule always applies, right?
Yeah. I'm just looking at the storage solutions, backup solutions. It wasn't Backblaze. Oh man, I don't.
I used Backblaze in the past. It was fine. It was
Yeah,
the only issue I had with it basically was the speed. Well, back in the day, I'm not sure if they now have representation inside the EU, but back in the day they didn't, and I was just pushing my data over the pond into some server in the US.
Yeah.
That was not very quick.
No.
So synchronizing the whole data store with all the pictures and personal files and was over 1.5 terabytes. I think took a week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah.
And then I had some issues with encryption, and it wanted to re-upload it all again, and it did that, and I had another problem with encryption, and wanted to re-upload again, and then I said, now it's enough.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to bother anymore because I don't want to be in a situation where I know they have my files, but they are encrypted. I do not know how to decrypt them because the key somehow went lost in the strange configuration that I had to make. And then,
Oh.
I can just wave at my data but not look at it. So that would be silly. So that was the reason why I pulled the plug.
Oh wow. I found out which one I'm using. I'm using iDrive, also an S3 solution, and it's configurable right from the TrueNAS interface. It just works.
Yeah. Yeah, that was basically the reason. And the flatter the solution is, the easier it is to recover to use it for recovery. Right?
Yeah, agreed. Oh, if you want to know more about the RK1s, we did a episode earlier talking about the RK1, so check out that one.
I think we included the links to them as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna put them down there, up there somewhere. Yeah, I think of something. But do you have a tip for today other than use or not use Ceph?
Don't think I have a tip this week.
Well,
Do you?
I was hoping you had one. Well, I'm looking around. Well, we're not sponsored. If you want to do a good podcast, use Riverside. Good tip.
Very much so.
So with that, thanks for listening. Subscribe, put in the bell, and all these kind of things, or just find us at one of the other platforms next to YouTube, Spotify. We're on. I was going to say,
We're everywhere.
I was going to say Odido, but that's a telephone company. We're Podimo. We're on Podimo these days. So if you're listening on Podimo, just subscribe. With that, I'm AJ.
I'm Alex.
See you next time.